Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Leadership Live, where we go over in-depth classes about real estate, talking about the fundamentals of real estate as well as the fundamentals in your business in real estate. Today, we're going to be talking about comparative market analyses, or CMAs. So with that, let's get started. My name is Nico Homan, and I'm the broker and owner of Homan Homes, and we're going to dive right into how I approach doing a CMA. And the most important part about that is valuing the property. So that's what we're going to talk about today, finding the value of a property. So when we give a listing presentation, we know exactly what price we're going to say that we're going to put the home on the market for. And hopefully we can even say what price we expect the home to close at. But first, let's kind of dive right into it. First, we need to pick a sample property. So today's sample property is going to be 1024 Sylvia Lane. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to your Shared With Me folder in the drive and then open up the suggested listing price report and the net sheet. Once you have those two documents open, those are really going to be the heart and soul of coming up with a value for our property when we do our CMAs. So the first thing that you want to do is open up the suggested listing price report form and the net sheet form. You want to make a copy. So go to File, Make a Copy, and then put it here in the folder into your drive. So click your folder, make a copy, and then put it in your drive right here. So that way, click on My Drive and hit Select. That way you have a copy of this particular file in your folder. Otherwise, you're just editing the common folder, the common drive folder, and that way everybody can see what you're doing. Whereas if you make a copy and put it in your own, you'll have your own records there. So now we have the two documents that we need. We have the suggested listing price report and we have the net sheet. Essentially, what these two documents do is they provide a snapshot in time of what values of properties are. Now that can be done by taking a look at the Zillow's estimate, the Realtor Property Resource tab, CoreLogic. There are several online valuation models that determine what a potential price point is for the home. And then there's also the comparable market approach, which takes a look at other sold properties and other active properties that are similar to our subject property. In this case, 1024 Sylvia Lane. Now, in the past, it had been that we only take a look at comparable sold properties. There wasn't an internet before, and so there was no way to do an online valuation report. But now that we have the capability to look online, to pull valuations of these properties, that's what we're going to be doing. And with that, you have this idea of the law of large numbers. So essentially what we're trying to do is create as many different data points as we can to get to the correct average. So if we just pull 3 comps in the neighborhood, they might be a good valuation approach to getting the exact number that we're looking for. But at the end of the day, there are only 3 examples, 3 data points. There are plenty of other data points that we could use to enter into our model to get a much better average. And that's exactly what we're looking for. We're not saying that the Zillow's estimate is correct or that the Realtor.com estimate is correct or that our comps are correct. We're just saying that they are one of several different data points that we can use out there to get a much closer example or a much closer range to what our home is worth. So once we have the suggested listing price report, we have these numbers filled out, we then enter this range into our net sheet. And what our net sheet does is gives us an example as sellers as to what our costs are going to be when we sell a particular home, when we sell our particular property. And for the most part, your costs are pretty much standard. In the state of Florida, title insurance, taxes, those are pretty regulated based on the sale price. Obviously, commission is a percentage of your sale price. Your title fees and things like that, those can be adjusted a little bit, and then obviously your mortgage amounts can be adjusted a little bit. So for the most part, we know a pretty good idea of what our costs are going to be when we sell a home. And so that way we have a pretty good idea now of what a potential range of values are for our home. So scenarios 1 through 5 here on our net sheet, which we just pulled from our suggested listing price report. And based on these different selling points, we now know our net proceeds, what essentially we will be walking away with as sellers at the closing table. How much money are we going to make? What is our net? And that's exactly what this net sheet is. So the two most important documents that we can work with are the suggested listing price report and the net sheet. So with that, let's go ahead and get started, try and pull some data. So we'll start with the suggested listing price report. That's a place a document you should always start with first. And so what we're going to be doing, we have here 5 different online valuation models that we can use to get a potential price point. And so this home currently is not on the market. So with that, we can actually find a little bit in more data. So we're going to enter the address into Zillow here. And Zillow is going to come up with their estimate. So their estimate is $298,789. So we enter that back here, $298,789. And that is one data point that we can use. Next, we want to enter this property into Realtor Property Resource, RPR. RPR is another data set that we can use to get access for an automated valuation. So we enter that address here, and the RVM, which is their version of the Zestimate, the automated valuation, has a different number, 309,620. So I'm going to take that number, 309,620, and we enter it here. Same thing, Realtor.com. We copy paste that address right into here. And we wait for it to load, and we have another estimate, 290,700. 290,700. Core logic and the property appraiser's information we can pull from the MLS. So let's see if we can find this property's data sheets. Sylvia, here we go. And we have a result. So we're going to pull that information. Great. We're going to pull now the realist report and get some tax data on this property. So this is our realist report here that's going to pull some numbers for us. So our core logic here, real automated valuation model, pulls a different price point. So 263,614. 263,614. And our county property appraiser has a different value right here, 203,067. So what we should also note about using the property appraiser's valuation of your home, know that it's always going to be significantly lower than all other valuation models. And that's for a couple different reasons. One, most properties in the state of Florida are homesteaded here. So we can see this property has been homesteaded. And they explicitly take $50,000 off the value of the home when it comes to taxation and how much the property can be taxed at. What the property county appraiser also does is automatically takes 20% off of the actual market price of every single property on their property tax roll in order to avoid large fluctuations with the market. From a government perspective, they want to make sure that they have a consistent amount of revenue. And so they don't want their revenues fluctuating plus 10% one year, negative 3% the next year. They want to stay relatively consistent. So they automatically lower all valuations. And so that way they can slowly go up over time and not fluctuate so much with the market. So knowing that, we have to add back in that value. So even though we have a price point here, 203,067, we have to add that 20% back in. So 203,067 divided by 0.8, 80%. So now, realistically, this is what our county property appraiser would have to say for this price point. And as you'll notice, it's still on the lower end of all of our valuations. So these are different online automated valuation points that we can get searching for a particular property. Now, again, this property is not currently available on the market. If it was, Realtor.com does not show their estimate. Realtor.com removes their estimate from their portal and only has the listing price on there. In that instance, I would replace Realtor.com with this particular website, and that way we can enter our price point here and create a new valuation model and get an estimate here. So this one says 297,705. So again, if this was not here, we would replace it with this, and 297,705 is what we have. If this was on the market, since it's not, we can just go back and use what we were using. Or if you wanted to even replace, the county property appraiser's website with a different one, that's potentially what we can do. Great. So now we have the different online valuation forms. Now we need to pull our own comps. And to do that, we need to find a little bit of data on this particular property. So what I do is take the zip code and then take a look at a couple quick stats of the home. So we know it is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home and about 2,000 square feet. So we need to find similar properties. We have the same zip code. We have active properties we're searching in the MLS and sold properties we're searching. Not a short sale, not a foreclosure. It's a single family home. It's a 4-2 with a 2-car garage. Perfect. So in this particular zip code, in the last 6 months in active, we have 18 potential matches that could work for us. So let's take a look and see what we have here. So these are all of the potential properties that could work for us. What we might even want to consider is narrowing down to 150 days or maybe even 120 days. 18 properties is a lot to take a look at when we're pulling some comps. And it seems like we've been a pretty hot market the last 3 months here on this particular one. So we have closer to 13. Typically you want anywhere from 8 to 20 results is usually pretty good, but obviously the more that we can have, the closer, more recently sold data, the better that information is. So now in the last 3 months, both active and sold properties, we have this particular set. And so what I like to do is I'll sort by price. We're gonna remove the highest priced one and the lowest priced one, because oftentimes those skew our numbers. You never know if you have some outlying ones. So we're going to discard the highest priced and the lowest priced one. We're gonna take a look at all of these stats here. So you highlight them all and in the MLS, click on stats. And boom, now this gives us a quick snapshot of the zip code of this subject property and to what other homes in that area are doing. So right now we have 4 active properties with an average price of $329. So we take down here, 4 average properties, $329. What was that price point again? $329, $975. $975. That's our active properties. And our sold properties, we have 7 of them. The median price point is $398. 7, $398, 1, 2, 3. And so now kind of taking a look at this, we can kind of pull some information and see, okay, well, these numbers here are a little bit skewed. Why is that? Well, we have one particular home that is significantly above the price of all the other homes. And when we know this particular one is a different community at a different price point. So what I would do is I would say, you know what, this one just doesn't fit the properties that I'm looking for. And so I'm going to discard that. Now, if we pull our stats again, we can take a look and see, okay, that gives us a much more realistic valuation. So now we've dropped the price almost $40,000. So 361, 983, and we have 6 of them. Perfect. So now what we've done, and take a look here as well. So of the sold properties, the average sale price to list price ratio is 98%. So what that tells me here now is I have a much better sample idea of what the potential price point could be for this home. So we have our online valuation models here, everything from Zillow to RPR to Realtor to CoreLogic and the county property appraisers to our own comp analysis and pulling some specific comps out there, seeing what could work. And we have a low price here, which is our county property appraiser, and we have a high price. And then in the middle of that is our median price at 307. We know our close to list ratio is at 98%, which means that buyers are getting about a 2% discount on the homes that they buy based on the listing price point. So if these numbers up here give us our suggested listing price range, this number here is going to get us our estimated closing price range. So essentially what we can say to our sellers is that I am almost 100% confident that your home will close somewhere between 248,757 and 354,743. with the median price point being 301. So it looks to me like the value of this property closing is right around 300,000. And to me, that seems pretty good based on the information that we pulled, what our high, what our low is. Right around 300 is pretty good. So with that, we're going to take these numbers in our suggested listing price report and plug them into our net sheet. So if our middle, we had about 300,000, we'll go about 10,000 off in either direction. This way we'll go 310, and this way we'll go 320. That way we are fairly confident that we will list and close on this home anywhere between 280,000 on the low side and 320,000 on the high side. Now, as you saw, as I entered these numbers into our sales price, into our scenarios, we had some formulas that automatically updated. So again, with title insurance and with our sales tax, our doc stamps on our homes, that's an automated formula that's set by the state. We don't change that. That is just determined by the price point of those homes. So again, we don't need to adjust that. Same thing with our commission rate. We can choose to charge whatever percent we want. So if we charge 1%, or if we charge 7%, we know about what those costs are going to be. So then we can play with them and give them to the seller. Courier and recording fees, these are pretty average. Same thing with title search examination closing fees. These are averages. Obviously, I would recommend talking with a title company first to see if you get specific costs associated with that. And then these other two lines here, estoppel and other mortgage fees and other fees. So your estoppel fees, as you'll note here, only if an HOA is present. So an estoppel fee is required by an HOA when you're selling a home to order a clean financial bill for that particular home in that particular HOA. And if this home was in an HOA, the maximum that an HOA can charge is $250. So let's assume there was an HOA. We would have to pay an additional $250 as a seller expense. Now, since that isn't the case, we can get rid of that. Other examples of other income or fees would be if the seller had to pay for a portion of the buyer's closing costs. Now that would be something here that we would include because that is something that we directly deduct from our seller's net. So if in our offer of $280,000, a buyer also asked for the seller to contribute $4,000 towards closing costs, well then we would have a better understanding of what costs we can associate with this particular one. So we have $4,000 in costs and fees to help assist for the buyer, and that means our total costs now jump up $25,000 to $25,000 total. But let's assume for this instance that we had no buyer closing cost assistance needed. And so now we can say, okay, here you go, sellers. This is what you can expect your costs are going to be when we as real estate agents and title companies list your home and close your home. But that's just one portion of it. So that is the cost of it. Now we need to figure out what the net is going to be. And to do that, we need to figure out what the seller's mortgage is and what their down payment was. And to do that, I have a handy dandy link here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to open that link, and that's going to take us to an amortization calculator. And what we need is in the realist report, we need to figure out what the mortgage history of that property was. So we know in 2014, the current owners took out a conventional 30-year mortgage for this amount. So we can enter that information, $176,850. $176,850 for 30 years. And now interest rates, we won't actually know. Unless a seller is willing to provide their interest rates, we're not going to know exactly what type of interest rate they received. Now, what we do know is historical interest rates. So back in 2014, interest rates were pretty low. They were around 3.5%. So somewhere between 3.5%, 3.75%, maybe even 4% would be an acceptable number. So for just to err on the high side, let's say 3.75%. So we're going to calculate the amortization table for this particular mortgage. So we know they took it out in September of 2014. So now it being June of 2018, we're almost 4 years later. We're about 40 months into it. So if we take a look down here at our monthly amortization schedule, we're looking for month number 40. So we have it right here, month number 40, $165,820. That is approximately the balance that the sellers owe on their mortgage, 165,820. So if we enter that information here, 165,820. Now we know, okay, so yes, your costs to list the home and to sell the home are this, but your mortgage payoff is going to be this. That means at the end of the day, once you subtract your costs and once you subtract your mortgage payments, you're going to net this amount. Not a bad little return. As a matter of fact, we can actually figure out what that return is going to be based on the down payment of the home. So if we know this 167,850 was the mortgage amount, and if we know this 196,500 was the purchase price, that means the difference between the purchase price and the mortgaged amount was the amount of down payment. So for this particular property, the down payment amount was $19,650. So we enter that information here, $19,650. So at the end of the day, we have our sales prices, what our potential sales prices could be for selling this home. And these 5 numbers we got through our suggested listing price report based on all these different valuation methods, what we could potentially get as a sale price for this home. We know our costs, they're relatively fixed, and we know what our mortgage payoff was based on the amount of mortgage that was taken out when we originally closed the home, and then how much time has passed. Then that gets us our net number, which is what the seller can walk away with at the end of the day when they finish closing. And then based on their down payment amount, we know what their percentage of return is on their cash invested. Not too bad of a profit there. And so with this, when we give our listing presentation to the seller, and the seller wants to know how much money you're going to sell my home for, how much is it going to cost me, and how much money am I going to make at the end of the day, well, now you can answer those questions perfectly. You have your suggested listing price report, and you have your net sheet information. And with that, we can take that and we can print it, save it as a PDF, we can email this to them, and now we have a couple different ways to transport this information to this particular seller. And with the suggested listing price report and with the net sheet, make sure you're only printing page 1. We got it perfectly suited to that. All you need to do is print 1 page, land portrait style, and everything will be ready to go. So with that, that is how we do our CMA, our comparative market analysis for our listing presentations. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we look forward to next week where we're going to talk a little bit more. So thanks, everyone.